السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll continue with the fiqh of worship. And last time we talked about the timing for the salah. And today, inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about the conditions of the salah. The conditions of the salah, shurut as-salah. And always as a reminder, please make sure that you have your notes and you write things down and seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by writing. It's a good deed. It's an act of ubudiyyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who learn the benefiting knowledge and those who act according and upon their knowledge. And when the knowledge is repeated over and over again, every time you study it, every time you know it or you get to hear it, there are certain meanings that come presented into the heart that can be not present before. So we should always never be bored with things that we already have heard it before. So, shurut as-salah, the conditions of the salah. What is meant by the conditions of the salah is that that if you are upon that condition, then you can make the salah. But if you don't have that condition, you cannot make salah. Right? But if you have the condition, you can either pray or you don't have to pray, as we will see. Like one of the conditions of the salah is to be in state of wudu. But if you are in state of wudu, you don't have to make salah. So the condition has to be there to perform the act. But if you already have the condition, you don't have to perform the act unless it's fard on you to perform the salah. And usually the condition is something that is not part of the act itself, like shurut as-salah, the conditions of the salah. That means these conditions are not part of the salah itself, something to be done outside of the salah, different than the pillars of the salah. The pillars of the salah, it is part of the salah itself, as we will see, inshallah ta'ala, the pillars of the salah. And also the conditions, something that we have to be upon till the end of the salah, till the end of the act, till the end of the salah, we have to be in that condition. The condition cannot be negated or so. So what are these conditions? There are 10 conditions. Okay, 10 conditions of the salah. And some of the ulama, they might mention less or so. It depends on how they categorize things. But there's no differences of opinions that these 10 conditions or these 10 things are obligatory upon a person if he wants to make the salah. But some would exclude one of these conditions or more to put it in the category of pillars, for example, or a condition that is general for the entire acts of ibadah. So 10 conditions of the salah. The first condition is al-Islam, to be a Muslim. That's a condition for the salah to be valid. Because the kafir, the disbeliever, his actions are rejected. So if a disbeliever performs the salah is not accepted unless he becomes a Muslim, unless he embraces the deen of Islam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about them, أُولَٰئِكَ حَبِطَتْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ. Their deeds are rendered in vain. So every action that a person do as an act of worship, it is not going to benefit the person unless it's with the foundation of it, which is the shahadat Allah ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. It has to be sincerely for the sake of Allah. And the person has to follow the Prophet ﷺ so that the person does not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala according to his own desire. So the first condition is al-Islam, to be a Muslim. Sometimes you know that when people, for example, they're learning about Islam so that they would make salah, we should not prevent them, right? Meaning that they want to experience what the Muslims are doing in the salah. You should encourage them, right? But this is not the salah that is valid unless they become a Muslim. But if they would make the salah and so on, and they even learn how to make wudu, and they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help in the salah, this can be means of guidance. But it's a condition for the salah to be valid is for a person to be a Muslim. The second condition is al-aql. Al-aql, which means sanity, that a person is sane, not insane. Because the insane, or the one that lost his mind, he is not responsible for his actions. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, رُفِعَ الْقَلَمُ عَنْ ثَلَاثٍ. The pen have been lifted from 3 people. That means the pen that writes the deeds of the people. That these three types of people, their deeds are not going to be recorded for them. النائم حتى يستيقظ, the one that is sleeping till he wakes up. والمجنون حتى يفيق, and the insane or the crazy one till his senses are back to him again. And والصغير حتى يبلغ, and the young person till he reached the age of puberty. So three people that the qalam, the pen have been lifted, it's not recording their deeds. The sleeping one, the one that is sleeping, the one that is insane, and the young person before the age of puberty. So therefore, the person when he's in salah, he has to have sanity. He's not someone that lost it with whether intoxication or with going insane or something of that nature. So that's the second condition. The third condition, it's called at-tamyiz. At-tamyiz meaning that the person is able to recognize or differentiate between what's right and what's wrong, and what's important and what's not, which is usually what is meant by the age of 7 years old and above. So if there's a child less than 7 years old, he does not have the condition for the salah to be valid. If he imitates the adults and he prays, mashallah, this is great, and his parents get rewards, but he's not yet in the age of making the salah. So 7 years old, even though it's before the age of puberty, their salah is valid, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Muru abna'akum bis-salati li-sab'a." Order your children to pray when they're 7 years old. That means once they're 7, then they're supposed to pray all the prayers. وَضْرِبُوهُمْ عَلَيْهَا لِعَشْرٍ, and that means hit them or punish them if they are 10. That means 10 years old, there's no excuse for anyone to miss the salah. Why? Because they've already been used to pray since they were 7 years old. وَفَرِّقُوا بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ, and separate them in sleeping, to not make them sleep in the same bed. So at-tamyiz is a condition for the salah to be valid, and that is 7 years old for the salah to be valid. But when is it become obligatory? Of course, at the age of puberty. The fourth condition is to be in state of wudu. But to be more precise, they call it raf' al-hadath. Not to be in that state of al-hadath. Al-hadath, as we talked about it before, is what breaks the wudu, or what breaks the tahara in general, because either a person has to make wudu or he has to make ghusl to take a shower. So to have that hadath, or that what breaks the purity, is lifted, and that's to be in state of purification. To be in state of purification, and we talked about the wudu and the pillars of it and so on. So this is number 4. Number 5, condition number 5. I hope everybody's writing. Condition number 5 is to remove an-najasa, izalatun najasa. To remove the najasa from 3 things. To remove the impurities, physical impurities, from 3 things. From one's body, from one's clothing, and from the spot that he's going to pray on. So 3 places where it has to be clean from any impurities: the body, the clothing, and the spot that the person is praying on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, and your garment purify. So this is a condition. And if a person in the salah, and he started the salah, didn't know that there was impurity on his body or his clothing or the spot that he is praying on, and he realized while he is in salah that there is impurity on him, if he's able to remove it, then he should do that and continue the salah, and not to break the salah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was praying with the companions radiallahu anhum, leading them in the salah. And while the Prophet ﷺ was an imam, he took his shoes off during the salah. So they did the same thing, imitating the Prophet ﷺ. So after they finished, the Prophet ﷺ asked them, "Why did you do that?" They said, "We saw you did that, O Prophet of Allah." So we did the same thing. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said to them that Jibreel ﷺ came to him, and he informed them that there is qadar, or there's impurity in them. And the Prophet ﷺ did not start the salah over. So whatever he prayed was valid, because he did know there was impurities. So during the salah, if a person is able to do that, then he should do that and continue the salah. But if it's something that a person cannot remove during the salah, then in that case, yes, and he knows with certainty that there's najasa on his body or so, then he has to leave the salah and to clean that and come back and join the salah from the beginning. And you don't have to make the wudu over again, because the najasa, physical impurity on the body, does not necessitate for the person to redo the wudu. He's still in state of wudu, but he has to remove the najasa, the impurity, the physical impurity from these three places. So this is number 5. Number 6, of course, there are many masail and so on, and we're trying to be brief here. So make sure, inshallah ta'ala, that you know these conditions like that. Number 6 is to cover the awra, satrul awra, to cover what is an obligation to cover, which is al-awra. And if a person does not cover his awra, right, then his salah is not valid. What is the awra for the men? The awra for the men is from the navel to the knees. From the navel to the knees. And for the woman, her entire body except her face. Her entire body except her face. And of course, if there are people present while she's making salah, these people are not from her mahrams, she can cover her face in this case. So, and the hands for the woman is to be covered. She doesn't have to wear gloves, but she can have her hands underneath the khimar. Her foot, while she's standing in the salah, has to be covered by the garment. The garment or the dress or so has to be long, that it covers the foot when she's standing. If the bottom of her foot comes, to be shown in sujood, for example, the bottom of the foot while she's in sujood, there's no harm. So if the garment is not that long, then she can wear socks or so, right? So this is with satrul awra, covering the awra. If a person's awra exposed in the salah, if he covers it right away, then the salah is still valid. But if it stays for a long period in the salah not covered, then that invalidates the salah. Or if it's from the private parts, then it invalidates the salah. So satrul awra. And of course, that brings the subject of wearing nice clothing when a person is making salah, not to wear tight clothing even for men, and things of that nature. So this is with satr al-awra. And then after that, the next condition, which is number 7, is the time has to enter, dukhul waqt. The time for the salah, the time for the obligatory salah has to be there, has to enter the time. The time has to enter for the person to make salah. You cannot make salah to dhuhr before the adhan of dhuhr. And what we mean by the adhan is the time of the dhuhr starts. Sometimes you might be in a masjid and dhuhr time starts at 12 o'clock, for example. And you are in the masjid and it's 12:15 and nobody made adhan. Can you pray sunnah to dhuhr? Of course you can, because the time of dhuhr starts. So when you're making sunnah to dhuhr, for example, you did know that nobody called the adhan, and then after you finish the sunnah, someone called the adhan. Do you have to repeat the sunnah again? No, because you prayed the sunnah of a dhuhr after the time of the adhan of the dhuhr. So dukhul waqt, or for the time to enter, this is a condition for the salah to be valid. And we heard how Jibreel alayhi salam, he came to the Prophet ﷺ in the beginning of every salah, and then the next day he came at the end of every salah. So this is with regards to the time. The 8th condition, number 8, is to face the qibla. Istiqbal al-qibla, to face the qibla. And of course, this is a condition that has to be there. قَدْ نَرَى تَقَلُّبَ وَجْهِكَ فِي السَّمَاءِ فَلَنُوَلِّيَنَّكَ قِبْلَةً تَرْضَاهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the Prophet ﷺ to face the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. And the qibla of the Muslimin is Mecca. And you can go into the details when the ulama, they said, if you are in Mecca, the qibla is the Masjid, al-Masjid al-Haram. And if you are in the Masjid al-Haram, the qibla is the Kaaba. So when we say the Kaaba is the qibla, it might be extremely difficult for someone that is in America, for example, to tell them that the qibla is the Kaaba itself. But we say the qibla is Mecca. So it's sufficient for you to face Mecca. And if you are in Mecca, then what do you face? You face al-Masjid. And when you face al-Masjid al-Haram, and when you are in the Masjid al-Haram, you face the Kaaba. So, and that has to be from the beginning to the end of the Salah. If a person is in his town, then he has to, of course, to face the Qibla. But if a person is traveling or a place he doesn't know where the Qibla is, he should put the effort asking people using any of the means to know the Qibla. And if he put the effort and he prays, then his salah is valid even if he did not face the Qibla. If he got to know while in the salah, he should move. Or someone see him not facing the Qibla, he should move him so that he would face the Qibla. So number 8 is to face the Qibla. Number 9, which is some of the ulama, they put it in the category of pillars of the salah, some put it in the conditions. But there's no problem in these differences because after all, it's a mandatory thing anyway. It's just a matter of classification here. So this 9th condition is an-niyyah, the intentions. Intentions for the salah. The intention is a deed done by the heart, and it's not something to be said. And actually, if a person says the niyyah with his tongue, this is bid'ah, this is innovation in the deen. The Prophet ﷺ never spoke the niyyah in the salah. Never said, nawaitu an usalli such and such. So the niyyah, it's a deed done by the heart. And it's a condition for the salah, meaning that if a person prays dhuhr and people were praying asr, for example, then he's praying dhuhr. He's not praying asr because his intention that he's praying dhuhr. Right? So the intention is a condition for the salah to be valid. So this is with regards to an-niyyah. No, that's 9 conditions. That's the conditions for the salah. Did I say 10? I'm sorry, I meant 9. So because some, they make it 6, some say more. So it's 9 conditions of the salah. So 9 conditions for the salah. Should we list them again? Do you get all the 9, inshallah? Okay, so does anybody here, if you want to share with us? No, we'll repeat them, inshallah. What's the first one? If you want, you can type the first one in that particular order that we said the conditions, inshallah. The first one is al-Islam. Very good. Number 2, sanity. Very good. Number 3, at-tamiz, age. Or actually, I'm not sure if we can say it in English, age, but we can say at-tamiz. Can somebody give us a good translation for at-tamiz? At-tamiz is to be able to differentiate. وَامْتَازُوا الْيَوْمَ أَيُّهَا الْمُجْرِمُونَ, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran. No, purity is the condition for mandate, for obligation. But this at-tamiz is a condition for the validity of the salah. Understanding, but it's not yet, the word at-tamiz, like the Quran says, وَامْتَازُوا الْيَوْمَ أَيُّهَا الْمُجْرِمُونَ. And imtazu, talking to the criminals, to the disbelievers, imtazu al-yawm, that means in the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to them, on that day, separate yourself. You're to be not among everybody else. So tamiz is when someone distinction ability. MashaAllah. Very good. Jazakallah khair. MashaAllah. So to be able to distinct things, right? The ability to distinct things, which is at-tamiz. Now, jazakumullah khair. MashaAllah. So at-tamiz, number 3. And that's what is the age of at-tamiz? 7 years old, right? Around 7 years old. Nah, jazakumullah khair. Okay, number 4. Number 4, wudu, or even to be more precise, what do we say? Raf'ul hadath. What's Raf'ul hadath? Since someone gave us, mashallah, the beautiful translation of tamiz, removal of impurity. Mashallah. But al-hadath, which is correct, but we need to also understand that al-hadath, which means an incident or something happens, right? So, and this is not a physical impurity, of course, as we know. So removal of al-hadath, and al-hadath is what makes the person not being in that state of purification. Okay. So to be in state of tahara, to be in state of purification, to be in state of wudu, all of that is valid as long as we understand what it means. Okay, number 5. The removal of physical impurities, mashallah, from 3 things. What are the three things? From one's body, from the clothing, and the spot where he or she is going to pray. Jazakallah khairan, mashallah. So to remove the impurities from three things, the body and the clothing and the spot that the person is praying on. Number 6, to cover the awrah. To cover the awrah. And the awrah for men, from the navel to the knees, and from the women, the entire body except the face. No. Barakallah fikum. Satrul awrah, mashallah. Very good. Barakallah fikum. Number 7, the condition number 7, time. Very good. Dukhul waqt, for the time of salah enters. Now, time to enter salah. Barakallah fikum. Number 8, facing the qibla, to face the qibla. MashaAllah. Number 9, the intentions. 8 to face the qibla, and number 9, the intentions. MashaAllah. So very good. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. So again, al-Islam, number 1. Number 2, al-aql, or sanity. Number 3, at-tamiz, the distinction ability, MashaAllah. Number 4, to remove the state of impurity. Number 5, to remove the state of physical impurity. And number 6, to cover the awrah. Number 7, the time enters of the salah. Number 8, to face the qibla. And number 9, the intentions of the niyyah. So these are the conditions for the salah. Any questions? Inshallah, by the time we are done with the salah, we should know how many pillars for wudu, conditions for wudu, conditions for the salah, pillars of the salah. This is something that we should be aware of, inshallah. Now, at-tamyiz, as we said, is the age where the child is able to distinct or differentiate between things. Like, for example, if he's in salah, he knows that what breaks the salah. Like if he does something in the salah that breaks his salah, he knows what's right and what's wrong. He's able to make judgments, or to think. His mind and his thinking is developed, and it's different than being a child. Like if you tell him to make salah, he knows what salah is. He knows that salah, that means he has to stand and to make ruku' and to make sujood and so on. Which is again usually 7 years old. Number 2 is al-aql, sanity. For a person not to be crazy, not to be someone that is insane. So he has to have the ability, which is basically what makes a person responsible for their actions in general. Al-majnoon, or someone that went insane, is not responsible for his actions. For women, can one wear socks, pray if you don't have tamyiz? So does that, I'm sorry. For women, can one wear socks and gloves to cover their hands and feet? For women, the garment that they wear should be covering that the foot is covered while she's standing. If it's a little bit short, she can wear socks. And also she should wear a khimar. And the khimar should come down, and then the hands will be underneath it, and that will be covered. So for the foot, she can wear socks if it's short, a little bit short. But for the hands, if there's no khimar, then that's an issue. She needs to have a khimar so that it covers, right? If not, then I guess she can wear gloves, but she doesn't have to wear gloves. So does that mean that you can pray if you don't have them? If you don't have tamyiz, the salah is not valid, but we should not stop the children from praying, right? So if the child is 4 years old, does not really understand what is the importance of the salah, things like this, he should still imitate everybody. He should stand with them, make salah, encourage them, motivate them, so on. But you don't order them. You don't tell them, it's time for the salah, get up for the salah, go make wudu. Don't forget to make your salah. You're not doing that till he reaches the age 7. Walaikum salam. But for women, it compulsory to also cover hands during salah. This is what we're saying in this session, yes. And I know that you might hear it somewhere else that hands is not mandatory to cover, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. The hands has to be covered, but not with wearing gloves, just to be underneath the khimar. And we have to be careful. For those who said it's permissible for women to show their hands, they meant by the hands of the palm. And many women, their sleeves are big. So what happens is that it's not just the hand or just the palm, part of the arm shows too. Especially when they raise their hands to say Allahu Akbar, It's not permissible for anything other than the palm for those who said it's permissible. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. What we follow here is that only the face is permissible. If the foot are open, the foot while standing should be covered. Right? But if in sujood it shows the bottom of the foot, then it's okay. That's fine. Touching the spouse, we didn't talk about yet what breaks the wudu, but only touching does not break the wudu, the spouse or so on, unless something else. If someone has been praying like that, then that means their salah has not been valid. If you're talking about the hands, no, their salah, inshallah ta'ala, is valid if they were following whatever opinion that they were following. The salah is valid, inshallah. Yes, the salah is valid, inshallah, if they were praying before that. But going forward, inshallah ta'ala, they should, while standing, the foot should be covered. Okay, inshallah, I'll stop here because of the next class. And we'll continue, inshallah ta'ala, next time. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى صحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.